really interesting. It is really interesting. I watched that press conference with Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman, and I touched on this in my last episode. But I watched that press conference, and I left it feeling just a little less assured about what Nick Sirianni will be able to do this season, whether he has command of the room or not. As you saw on the microphone, he clearly doesn't. And it was odd that it was him and Howie Roseman doing the conference together. Why didn't they do it separately? It seems odd to me. It looked odd. It felt odd. It felt awkward. But I also touched on this in my last episode that this is mainly about control for Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie. And Nick Sirianni is the guy to let them take control. He's not somebody who's going to be the big dog in the room. He's going to let the other people meddle in and put in their own twist on things regards to football. Because I don't deny that Sirianni isn't necessarily a bad coach. I think he's an okay coach at the worst. I don't think he's a bad coach by any means, because you don't win 67% of your games without doing something right. Whether it's bringing in the right coordinators, bringing in the right coaches, you got to give him credit in that sense. But the collapse has been something that's been just on every Eagle fan's mind. We can't even explain it. And you look at the press conference, you hear what Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni say. And to me, I don't know if I feel great going into this offseason, going into the season. We hire Vic Fangio, the same bullshit scheme that we ran these past couple of years. The bend but don't break, the aggressive 3-4, whatever the hell it is you want to call it. The scheme that is reliant on having star linebackers in order for it to work. And we have none. It relies on having two cornerbacks that can play man. We only have one in Darius Slay. James Bradbury is a bum. Two safeties who can cover on the back end and make dynamic plays. We have Reed Blankenship, who's an average safety. Kevin Byard, who's lost a step. Sidney Brown tore his ACL. And Justin Evans is an injury-prone safety. Who do we have on the back end? We got nobody. To me, does this whole thing, that press conference, leaving that press conference, it made me think of one thing. Are we doomed going forward? Are we doomed for this upcoming season? The idea that we will compete for the division, compete in the playoffs, are we really that caliber of a team at the moment? That's something we're going to discuss today. But before we get into that, let me introduce myself. My name is Asif Badi. This is the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. And normally I am a pessimistic yet optimistic Eagles fan. Past couple of years, I've been an optimistic one. I'm now back down to my pessimistic self in regards to the Philadelphia Eagles. Because something about this team just does not feel right. Something is rotten in the state of Denmark, or in this case, in the state of Pennsylvania. Something's not right here. And you have to look, and all you really have to look at is the way we ended the season and how the press conferences went forward. The 1-7 collapse, inexplicable. How we went from 10-1 to all of a sudden forgetting how to play football. Going from a 10-1 historic start in terms of the teams that we were beating and the close games and how well we were relatively playing down the stretch in the second half of games, to all of a sudden being incompetent on every single level. Coaching, offense, defense, special teams, tackling, penalties, you name it. It was the worst team in football the past 7 weeks of the regular season and in the playoffs. It was objectively the worst team. And now we have to sit here and expect this team in the offseason to figure it out. Oh, it's just the coaching. It was just the coaches. That's the only reason why. No. Everybody has to look in the mirror. Everybody has to ask themselves really a tough question here. The only reason that any Eagle fan has hope right now is because the NFC as a conference is relatively weak. But ask yourself this. If this were any other team who was running an operation like this, would you look at that team and ask yourself, can that team win a Super Bowl? Hell, we think the Dallas Cowboys are dysfunctional. They're not operating like this. They're not. Mike McCarthy at least can call a goddamn play. He can call a game. Nick Sirianni was straight up asked by a reporter, what do you do for the Philadelphia Eagles? What is your job? Well, I'm the head coach. I'm the CEO of the team. I'm the head coach. That's what I'm going to do. You got to be kidding me. The ball's on the reporter for one to ask the question. Good for him. And I mean, what the hell is Sirianni supposed to say to that? I mean, you have completely lost the faith of not only the Philadelphia media, but the fan base. And then Howie Roseman's out there letting this dude hang out to dry. What do you do as a head coach? Jeez Louise, man. Can you imagine if the Baltimore media was asking John Harbaugh, hey, what do? You don't call plays. You don't call defenses. What do you do for the Ravens? How about Mike Tomlin? What do you do? You're not calling defense. You're not calling the offense. What exactly do you do? Dan Campbell. What do you do, bro? You ain't calling anything. What do you do? No, you couldn't think of that. You want to know why? Because those three other gentlemen are leaders of men. They can galvanize the people in the locker room and get them to focus on a mission and to go ahead and accomplish that mission. Sirianni, early on, looked like he was getting ready to be that, and he was doing that, and I supported him. But after the collapse, the inexplicable collapse, the inability to stop the bleeding, the inability to get these guys to go out and play hard, no semblance of pride whatsoever. Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie decide, let's bring him back for another year. It's really tough to get a coach who gets to the playoffs 3 straight years. Give me a break. You guys fired Doug Pederson after he had the equity of a Super Bowl. This is starting to have the feeling of a really bad year. And it feels like it's going to end in a similar fashion that it did with Doug Pederson. Now, with Doug Pederson, it felt like the team just disintegrated in the sense that they didn't know who to listen to. Ownership wanted to do one thing, Doug Pederson wanted to do another. And I felt that year at times, he mishandled the Carson Wentz situation. He mishandled some of the games where I felt like he was coaching scared, and I felt like that was part of the reason we let him go. And I thought it was the right time to let him go because he lost the locker room, in my opinion. But you're telling me Nick Sirianni didn't lose this locker room? You're telling me that every player on this team, the veterans say they'll play for him hard because he likes the way they run because they like the way he runs practices, but they don't know who's in charge, or maybe they do. The There were times where they didn't know who's the one calling the plays. And in the press conference, he even said, I'm going to be the one to step back in the offensive game plan and let whoever's coming in as the coordinator run their offense. Which now indicates to me that Nick Sirianni was heavily involved in the offensive design and scheme and the play calling during the year. And Brian Johnson took the fall. Now, he didn't do a great job as a play caller, but I'll be damned. I don't know if he's a good or a bad coach right now. It looked like he didn't even get a fair shot. And now my quarterback, Jalen Hurts, has to be susceptible to this. He has to be subjected to this, where he's looking at it and he's thinking to himself, this game plan is absolute dog shit. And I have to come out here and try to execute this plan when we know it ain't going to work. You could say, hey, you're the quarterback. You're the $250 million man. You need to fix the problem. But damn it, how the hell are you supposed to fix the problem of preparation, of the play design, of the actual scheme? And then you're going out there, you see what you're seeing with Jalen Hurts. He's dropping back, rolling out, ain't no receiver looking at him because they're all down the fucking field. Guy had no idea how to handle a blitz. The team had no idea. And then the defense was just as bad as the offense. And then Howie Roseman is sitting there, and he's telling everybody that, hey, it ain't the people on the team. The personnel's fine. Zach Cunningham had a great year. We believe in all these guys. We have talent. We don't believe it's the players. We don't believe it's a personnel issue. Basically, he's telling everybody out there, it ain't my fault. Don't look at me. The guy next to me. That's the reason. That's the reason we stunk. And dude, I feel bad for Nick Sirianni. I do. I wish we just put him out of his misery and just say, hey, dude, listen, just go home. We'll click the reset button. We'll start fresh. Because there's no way going into this regular season for the 2024 year, there is no way an Eagle fan at the moment right now, we haven't even gotten into the draft, the free agency class. We haven't even done any of that yet. There's no way right now you could sit here as an Eagles fan and tell me that you feel good about the Eagles going forward for the next year or two. You just can't tell me that. Because I know for damn sure this has the remnants of what it looked like at the end of the Doug Pederson era. It does. I don't know what to expect going forward, but I know when something smells rotten, there's something rotten. And right now in Philadelphia land, maybe my opinion will change, but I know right now it does not feel good. I'm feeling shaky. And Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni have a lot of goddamn work to do. And I don't know if Sirianni is going to be able to get the job done because I don't know if Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie, Jalen Hurts, and all the other guys actually believe that Sirianni can get the job done. And the odd thing about it all is that if this really is a year where Nick Sirianni is on the hot seat, why the hell did we clean out all the coaching staff? If you were going to enter this season with him on the hot seat anyway, you might as well have just pulled the trigger. If you were firing the coordinators anyway, just get rid of the head coach too. But no, you're bringing in Vic Fangio. You're bringing in all the assistants that he's going to bring in. Maybe you hire Cliff Kingsbury as your OC, as that's what reports are saying right now. And he brings in all his staff and runs his operation the way he wants to do. And now Nick Sirianni's just sitting there like a lapdog. At the behest of Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman, not knowing what the hell to do. The poor little guy. And listen, I feel bad for Nick, but you know what? If you fucked up, you fucked up. You need to fall on your own sword. He threw his coordinators under the bus, and then he had to kiss their ass to make sure that he didn't get fired. And now you're looking at my star QB, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Lane Johnson, Mailata, Landon Dickerson, and then you go on the defensive side of the ball with Hassan Reddick, Darius Slay, Jalen Carter, Josh Sweat, Nolan Smith. They're subjected to nonsense. I can guarantee you that whole team, if they enter this offseason, they're going to enter this offseason, and you're going to hear a lot of issues coming into camp. A lot of sloppy play because nobody believes in what's going on in Philadelphia right now. That's just my gut feeling. I know I don't. And the only way for me to make sure, or for me to feel good about the team again, is to hit the reset button on the coaching staff. And it doesn't seem like we're doing that. And that press conference did not make me feel any better either. It's a damn shame. Because just 2 years ago, this year, last year, we were, a minute and a half away from winning the Super Bowl? When Jalen Hurts played out of his goddamn mind? Oh, jeez, man. This is going to be a long season. I have a feeling that we are going to be facing a really tough season, despite the easier schedule, despite the fact that we have more home games than away games, despite the fact that we're going to have a new voice as offensive coordinator. And they may fool us into winning like 10 plus games, getting into the playoffs. But now this team that has the talent, according to Howie, to go get a chip. At least offensively it does. But this defense is really in bad shape. And he's not taking accountability for the personnel. Of course not. He believes in what he's going to do. And it's all being set up for Nick Sirianni to look like the dumb guy in the room. And unfortunately, everybody else believes he's the dumb guy in the room because he fumbles, he stumbles, he carries himself like the guy who doesn't know what he's doing. And I feel bad because you've won 2/3 of your games as the head coach. Got to a Super Bowl. And now all of a sudden, you're the lame duck coach. And all because the organization wants to meddle in football operations. Let this be a lesson that press conference highlighted for all of you. Have your own principles, stand by them. Because if you don't, you just look like a fucking bitch. Hey, you got through a full episode of the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. Thank you for watching. If you want to support the channel, hit the like and subscribe button below. You can also check us out on Instagram at the Riding the Bench podcast with a K instead of C in the word podcast. And also check us out on audio platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, you name it, we're on there. All of that is in the description below. Please come back next time for the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. Thanks for listening.